Your next film as director was actually an adaptation of Elmore Leonard,
Yeah.
Jackie Brown. Now, had you read Leonard a lot?
Oh yeah, no, I was a big fan of Elmore Leonard, and he was probably the biggest influence on my writing, because you know, the conversations that would happen in his books were the conversations that me and my friends would have, and that's the kind of conversations that I thought could be in movie dialogue that I'd never heard before. And when I read his stuff, I'd see, this can work. He was like he gave me the permission to go further with what I wanted to do.
So Rum Punch became Jackie Brown, and Jackie Brown was played by Pam Grier,
Yeah.
who had been Foxy Brown in
Yes,
1974,
exactly, yeah.
and she'd been one of those really early female action stars.
Yeah, in the book the character was white, and her name was Jackie Birch. The whole idea was that she was a more mature lady who was still very beautiful, and ends up that she can kind of handle anything. She just has a poker face that she can lie and not crumble. Where everyone else would crumble in a tight situation, that's where she shines, actually, and she gets calmer. And I go, well, that sounds like Pam Grier to me.
One of the things about Jackie Brown was that actually, although the narrative was in some ways more linear than your previous stuff, you tell one incident from several different perspectives.
Yeah, yeah. I just thought that that would be the way to tell the story, was to just follow one person all the way through and then go back again and follow another person all the way through and then go back again and follow the other person all the way through. It's just exactly the way it hit me as I was reading it to do it.
And you gave them all the characters had different soundtracks as well,
Yeah,
which converge at one point.
Well, they have their different soundtracks, and also every character kind of had their own drink that they drank in that, all right? Ordell always drank screwdrivers, orange juice and vodka. Jackie Brown always drank white wine. And Louis and Melanie smoked pot.
That's the way it goes. Now, next then we get to the fourth film by Quentin Tarantino, as it says in the title of it, which is Kill Bill Volumes 1 and 2. Now, you and Uma Thurman cooked this up between you, didn't you, the idea, when you were making Pulp Fiction?
Yeah. The idea was doing a revenge movie. The idea was doing a kind of a 70s style. This is before it became a martial arts thing. That happened later. But earlier on, it was like a badass chick revenge movie. With Uma Thurman gets like screwed up by this guy named Bill, and she's going and kill all of his lieutenants, and then gets Bill at the end. And so me and Uma were in the throes of a very great artistic love affair, all right? It's like, oh, she's my actress, oh, he's my director. And it was very lovely. And so I came up with that. I told her about the idea, and then, you know, on the set, or we go out for drinks afterwards, and we talk a little bit more about it, and she'd get a little more excited. And then she started adding a couple of things, and one of the things that she added was, she goes, Quentin, you said that, so it starts off with Bill shooting her, right? Because I always had that idea of, you know, shot in the head at the very beginning. She's laying on the floor, and then she goes, what if the camera like moves back from her close-up of her face, and she's been shot in the head, and the camera moves back from her face, and you see she's in a bridal gown. And that was the day the bride was born.
And probably the bride is possibly a cinema heroine who suffers more than almost any other heroine we can think of on screen. She just goes through more and more. It's almost like a religious experience.
Yeah, no, she goes through hell. I mean, yeah, it's, you know, maybe Jesus in the Passion of Christ, because it's a little worse than her, but only a little bit. I'm a big fan of action and violence in cinema. I always said that it was almost as if it was one of the reasons Thomas Edison invented the camera, was to film violence, right? Because it's so good. And the genres that I'm attracted to tend to be genres that deal freely in that kind of stuff. And that has to be done well, because if you don't do it well, then it actually has no effect. What I'm about is playing the audience. Like, I feel like I'm the orchestra conductor, and the audience's reaction are my orchestra. And the sounds you make are my instruments, and your feelings are my instruments. And so it's like, I want to, so it's like, laugh, laugh, laugh. Stop laughing. Stop laughing. Okay, now be horrified. Be horrified. This is horrible. This is horrible. This is horrible, horrible, horrible. Laugh. And that's what I want to do. That's what I get off doing. And to me, when someone does that to me, I've had a good time at the movies.
But by getting that reaction, okay, I may be being far too heavy about this here, but is there a sense in which some of your violence, I find really difficult to watch. I mean, you see a lot of violence in cinema, but even just going back to Reservoir Dogs, you know, man bleeding in the back of a cab, or whatever it is, really unsettling. There are bits in Inglourious Basterds, really unsettling. Is that because you never want people to forget the capacity, if you like, for humans to harm one another?
No, I think you're arguing too heavy with it, as far as I'm concerned. You know,
I thought maybe I was.
Yeah, no, I don't have concerns or thoughts like that. You know, if a guy's shot in the stomach and he's bleeding like a stuck pig, I want to see him bleeding like a stuck pig. That is now the situation they're dealing with. All right, it's not he's like, ooh, ow, he's got a stomach ache and a little round hole right here. No, he's gonna have like, you know, a pint or two of glue. You know, building up. I want to see that. That is now a thing that they have to deal with.
Now, there's a question about any of your films where you're making lots of references to earlier genres. If people haven't seen them, does it matter if they don't get the references?
No, not at all. Because I'm just known as such a film aficionado, there is this aspect that everybody who writes about cinema or thinks about it just kind of sees me coming, basically. So everyone feels like they want to match wits with me and figure out that, you know, where did this come from? Where did that come from? And most of the illusions that people come up with, I wasn't thinking about. I mean, I might have seen it, but I wasn't thinking about it. And I think they're kind of pushing the point to say that that I was from this or from that. Having said that, though, you know, there is a lot of things like that. But the way it works is, if you understand the context from which I'm coming from and the genres that I'm evoking and the moods and the feelings of them, well, then that's great. Now you can appreciate it in that way, and that's all good. And if you haven't, then it's all brand new to you, and you can look at it in a completely different way. And now it's got to work in a whole different way for you because you don't understand the genre. I have to take you there myself.
And I guess Inglourious Basterds is a really good example of that because you are working from an idea of a couple of films, particularly from the 70s, but obviously a whole lot of Second World War films that maybe you saw on television that a whole generation will never have seen.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like jumping off from the idea of, like, you take a big genre, like, say, Westerns, or you take a genre like war films, and that's a huge genre, because, and it's not just Westerns, or not just war films, there's a bunch of subgenres inside of those. And that's what I like the most, are subgenres. And then bouncing a bunch of those off of each other. And the thing is, I never want to play them, never playing them straight. I always want to transcend them. I just want to use them as a jumping off point to do something else. But I don't want them to be an art, some pretentious artistic art film meditation on the genre. I want to go and do it my own way. And so I want to give you the same pleasures, but kind of go to a different drummer. Hence, Reservoir Dogs is a heist film where you never see the heist. Inglourious Basterds, the genre I was starting off working with was a bunch of guys on a mission movie. And it kind of is that, but it's beyond that. There's other things involved.
But then you have this extraordinary actor in the centre of it who plays the Nazi, the main Nazi figure, Christoph Waltz. Now, where did you find him?
When I wrote that script, I was so proud of the character on the page that I didn't want to do the movie unless he could be as good on screen as he was on the page. I couldn't have any compromise as far as that was concerned. And so I read all these different German actors for the role. There was a lot of them who really wanted the part. But they couldn't pull off my dialogue in English. And it wasn't a situation of them not being fluent. They could be fluent. We could have a conversation for the next 6 hours and they would be able to speak English just fine. But English really wasn't the language for them to read poetry in. It wasn't the language for them to sing in. They couldn't get the right comedy rhythms that happened in there. And I was literally starting to think that maybe I wrote a part that was unplayable. And there was one morning, I called the producers into my hotel room. I said, guys, I'm not trying to freak everybody out, but I don't know if we're going to find Londa. I don't know if we're going to find the perfect Londa anyway. And unless we find the perfect Londa, I'd rather not make this movie. We had a deal pending where Universal was going to come in on the movie. But in the meantime, I figured the movie's going to get made, so I'm financing everything myself. And so if I'm going to pull the plug, this would be the week to pull the plug, because on Friday, I think it was on Friday, Universal, or Monday, Universal would be bankrolling us. So I had to pull the plug before they started bankrolling us. So that would be this week. And I really have to give the producers credit. They didn't freak out. They were just, they looked at it they got it. They got it and they go, okay, well then you know what? This week is Londa, 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 Londa. If we go down, we'll know for sure that you're right. There is not a guy to play this goddamn role. And that day, Christoph waltzed in the room. And I didn't know who he was. He's mostly known in Germany for doing TV. And literally, it was a thing. Me and Lawrence were in the room, and he came in and started his read, and just like 3 minutes into a almost 20-minute scene, once he started doing the English and started just getting the rhythms and getting the things, me and Lawrence looked at each other, and we knew we were making the movie. He literally gave me my movie back.
There's quite a lot of, obviously, rewriting of history, but I guess every war film rewrites history, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, that's how I looked at it.
You just went that bit further.
Yeah, I just decided to just really go for it.
Well, Quentin Tarantino, for your Life in Pictures, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, it was lovely. Thanks, everybody.